Hey guys, how you doing? It's Will here. Back for another fight card this weekend. Been a few weeks since the last card for the UFC. There's been a couple of really decent Cage Warrior events. If you haven't caught that, go catch out the fights from the last couple of weeks. UFC back in Brazil on FX, and again it's headlined by the Phenom Vitor Belfort. I've been a Belfort fan for a long time. Uh, I think he deserves another shot at Anderson Silva, but it's kind of hard to give Belfort another title shot after what Silva did to him the last time. He's got a really tough opponent here in Luke Rockhold, the Strikeforce middleweight champion, who's making his UFC debut. A tough guy. He's beat some good fighters. Beat Jack Reigns, who's a really good fighter, but he's coming into a big fight here with Belfort. As I say, it's UFC back in Brazil. Every time they go to Brazil, it's just red hot, no matter who they have in the card. So good to see them back in Brazil. The events, when they go to Brazil, it's always a class event. But we're going to go all the way back. We'll go at the start of the event. I'm just going to read through them. There's a lot of new fighters that are coming in here. A lot of new Brazilian fighters with a lot of the kind of the talent that we haven't seen in the UFC. Some of the kind of newer talent, your Roger Hoylitz and stuff like that. But first up, we've got Lucas Martins against Jeremy Larson. Lucas Martins, tough UFC debut. He faced Edson Barboza. He lost that fight. Apart from that, I think he's 12-1, and that's his only loss is to Edson Barboza, and that's a tough fight for anybody to have in their UFC debut. He's against Jeremy Larson, who was on, I think it was TUF 15. If I remember right, I think his last fight he lost to Joe Proctor. Could be wrong. I think he lost. So I'm going to go Lucas Martins, second round TKO. Next up, we've got Jose Formega against Chris Carriaso in the flyweight division. Love the flyweights. Formega, this is his third fight in the UFC. I think his first fight was John Dodson, which he got knocked out last time out. And he's against Carriaso here, but to say Formega, he was really good. Outside the UFC, fought some good fighters. He lost to Ian McCall. He fought in Tashi Palace, which he did all right in. But yeah, he's got a tough fight here against Chris Carriaso. He likes to go. He's a submission artist, is Formega. He likes to go to the ground and try and win his fights there. Chris Carriaso was coming off a loss to John Moraga back in December, right before the new year. Now we all know what's happened then, because John Moragas went on. He's got himself a title shot against Demetrius Johnson. He's won a few fights in the UFC. Beat Vaughn Lee. I think this might have been at bantamweight. Was it bantamweight? It might have been at bantamweight. But his flyweight debut was against Josh Ferguson, and he won a decision. Sorry, excuse me. But he lost by submission to John Moraga. So I'm going to go with let me see. He's fought a lot of good fighters. Just looking at his resume there, Carriaso. Way back in the WEC days, he fought Henan Barao. He lost by submission. Just seen there, he faced Michael McDonald, which I just remember there at UFC 130. So the guy's fought some really tough fighters. But I think Formega's going to get the victory here. I think he's going to submit him. Let me see, second round. We'll go with second round in the flyweights there. Another fight we've got in the flyweights is John Lineker against Azamat Gashimov. Lineker, I think he lost his last fight to Luis Gaudino. In fact, it was wrong. He beat Yurishitani by decision back in Macau last year. Before that, he lost to Luis Gaudino. But he's got a 20-6 record against Gashimov, who I think he's fought in the UFC before. I can't really remember much about him. I'm not gonna go and have a look and see what he's doing. In fact, let me see what his record is before I do anything. He's 7-2. Is Gashimov, but I like Lineker. He's in Brazil here. I think he's going to get the win. I'm going to go by decision. Flyweights, they don't really finish fights that often, but I'm going to go with decision here. Next up we have, I think it's the light heavyweights. A fighter I actually like watching quite a lot. He's quite an exciting fighter. Fabio Maldonado, his last fight was against Glover Teixeira, and he took some shots, and he kept coming forward and throwing shots in that fight, and I think he kind of hurt Glover a little bit in that fight, but eventually he got taken out and stopped. I think if I remember right, yes, he did. The doctor stopped it away back at UFC 153 last year in October. But he's against Roger Hoylett here, who was in an absolute stinker of a fight with Matt Hamill. Now, anybody that knows me, I'm quite a big Matt Hamill fan. The deaf community out there, I try and because my fiance is deaf, I try to support all the kind of deaf athletes out there. So I'm a big Matt Hughes fan, but that fight was an absolute stinker, and Hoylett looked absolutely horrible to say the least. And I reckon that Maldonado's going to knock this guy's chin off. If Matt Hamill was any better than what he was, he would have taken him out with ease. But Maldonado will do that, and I think he'll do it with ease. Next up, we've got Uri Alcantara against Eliard Santos. Santos 27-6-1. Don't really know much about him. Alcantara's 27-4. Santos has been around for a bit, a lot of fights, a lot of TKOs, some submissions, and some decisions in there as well. But this is him coming to the big league there. He's fought John Lineker in the past. He lost to him. So he's fought a few decent fighters, but mostly in Brazil. Here he's fought, and Alcantara, who is I think he's been in the UFC for quite a bit now. He's floated around a few of the divisions, and his last fight was against Nobre, and it was a no contest for an accidental foul. That was back at Brazil in January. He lost to Hakran Diaz. Before that, he beat Omigawa, Arantes. He beat Ricardo Lamas, which is a really good scalp to have. He's on a good run at the minute. But I'm going to go by Alcantara by decision here. Alcantara by decision. Next up, we've got Paulo Thiago against Miguel Prazeres. I think he's undefeated as Prazeres, but he's got a tough fight, UFC debut here. He's mainly fought in Brazil. Paulo Thiago, we all know he came in to the UFC, he knocked out Josh Cockcheese fairly early on, which everybody loved to see. Then he lost John Fitch. He had wins over Volkman, Swick, before a couple of losses to Sanchez and Campman, before beating David Mitchell, which was a bit of a gimme. And then he's lost his last two to Sayar the Bitch and Dong Young Kim. A couple of tough fights. He got a bad knockout against Sayar, but he just got dominated by Dong Young Kim, which a lot of fighters do. So this might be a good fight for him to get back on the winning track and get himself back up the rankings again, which he's kind of plummeted down the rankings in the fights that he's had. But I'm going to go by him by knockout, third round. Next up, we've got Gleison Tibau against John Cholish. Tibau, he's been in the UFC for years. Not actually sure how long it's been. Let me see. First fight in the UFC was 2006. So the guy's a veteran of the sport. He's been around. He's fought a lot of the good fighters in the UFC lightweight division. Nick Diaz was his UFC debut, and he lost to him. He got knocked out. But he's fought Terry Etam, Tyson Griffin, Joe Stevens, Rich Clemente, Jeremy Stevens, Melvin Gillard, Josh Neer, Jim Miller, Cat Pellegrino, Dos Anjos, Khabib, Trinaldo, Dunham. He's fought a lot of really, really solid fighters, and his last fight against Dunham was a good fight. I'm a Dunham fan, so it was good to see Dunham get back in the win streak. But this is going to be a tough fight against Cholish. I think he's 9-2 from New York. Lost his last fight to Danny the Dick Castillo. And before that, he won his fight against Mitch Clark in his UFC debut. He knocked him out. So I'm going to go by Gleison Tibau by decision. Just by decision. Could be a close fight, that. Next up, we've got Francisco Trinaldo against Mike Rio. Mike Rio was on I think it was Ultimate Fighter Live. Was never really a big fan of when he was kind of hyping himself up. I think he's coming to the UFC. He's won a fight, if I remember. Yeah, he beat John Kofa, which by submission by armbar. He's got a totally different opposition here against Trinaldo. Trinaldo is a veteran. He's been around for a long time, and he's on a little bit of a run at the minute. He lost to Tebow way back at UFC 153, but came back and got a submission win over CJ Keith at UFC when they were back in Brazil in January there. He beat Halano at UFC 147 as well. This is the guy that's been around for a while. He's tough, he's gritty, and he will beat Mike Rio this weekend by submission. And I'm going first round with that, sorry. Next up, we've got Hakran Diaz against Nick Lentz. Diaz is quite an exciting fighter to watch. I quite like watching him. He's 21-1, so he's got a good record and he's got a bit of momentum out there. Beat Alcantara by decision, but he's against a wrestler here who wants to take to the ground. Nick Lentz has kind of changed. He's kind of come out and started throwing a little bit, and he's looked fairly decent in these fights. I think he won his last fight against Diego Nunes, but I think it was quite an exciting fight if I remember right. I could be completely wrong, I've got the worst memory ever. And then he beat Mitsuoka before that. Before the 2 fights before that, he was stopped by Evan Dunham, and he got lost a decision to Mark Bocek. Charles Oliveira was a no contest. Waylon Lowe, he beat Tyson Griffin, which is a good win, and Andre Winner, which he went on a lot of decisions through then, along with Rob Emerson and Thiago Tavares and Oliveira. Beat Drew Fickett. So he's going back. He's a wrestler, but he's starting to throw a little bit now. So we'll maybe see a bit of a different fight here. But I think Diaz is just too good for him. Diaz is going to get the win by. I'm going to go by decision. Next up, we're on the main card. We've got Rafael Natal against João Zeferino. Sorry. Natal he won his last fight. Let me see. Against Sean Spencer by submission. And then he was knocked out by Andrew Craig the fight before that, which was a nasty knockout. I think he was dominating that fight, and then he got knocked out. Beat Michael Kloiper before that. Zeferino, don't know anything about him. Never even went and looked up. So I'm going to go by Natal by submission in the second round. Next up, we've got a really good fight. Really, probably the best fight of the night for me. Rafael dos Anjos against Evan Dunham. Like these fighters, both really good fighters. Dos Anjos is good in his feet, but he's even better on the ground. Dunham's just a warrior. He will go anywhere in the octagon and just duke it out. I'm finding it hard to pick here, but I'm going to go by Dos Anjos. It could go submission or decision here, but I'm going to go by submission. A lot of submissions in this one, just because we're back in Brazil and BJJ. Hopefully we'll see a lot of submissions. We haven't really seen as many in the last load of events. So Dos Anjos just by submission, third round. Next up, we've got Jacare against Chris Camozzi. Then this was supposed to be Jacare against Costa Philippou, which looked a really good fight on paper. But Chris Camozzi stepped up to replace Philippou, who got injured. Ronaldo Souza, Jacare, he was a champion away over on Strikeforce. Lost his title to Luke Rockhold, but is a really feared Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. You go to the ground with this guy, he will submit you. He can do it like that, and he did it in his last fight against Ed Herman, who came over from the UFC. Put him in a Kimura in the first round, just made him tap out. Wins before that against Derek Brunson, who he KO'd. Bristol Morundi, who he submitted. So the guy doesn't really go at decisions too much. He went to decision with Luke Rockhold and lost his title there, but he's wins over Robert Lawler, Tim Kennedy, who I don't like. Fuck Tim Kennedy. Matt Linland. He fought Musasi and lost. So he's fought a lot of really, really good fighters. And I hope he makes a run in the UFC because he's a good fighter to watch. But I'm going to go another submission here, the second round. But I can actually see maybe TKOing Camozzi as well. And that's your co-main event there. So Camozzi, I think he's on a win streak at the minute. Kamosi, if I remember right. Yeah, yes, he's on a 4-fight win streak. Wins over Jacoby, Catone, Lewis Kane, and Nick Ring. 4-fight win streak, and he's got a big fight here against Jacare. I just can't see him troubling Jacare at all. But you never know. But I'm going to go with Jacare with submission, first or second round here, and then we're on the main event of the night. Vitor Belfort against Luke Rockhold. As I said, Luke Rockhold is a former Strikeforce middleweight champion. Belfort is a former, I think he won the heavyweight tournament way back in years ago, and he won the light heavyweight title. But he's fought all the best. There's not many guys that he hasn't fought. He's fought Couture's. He's fought. I think he fought Ortiz, and he fought John Jones. And he stepped up and faced him. So he's faced everybody: Rich Franklin, Vanderlei Silva, and the last time out was an absolute epic win. The biggest win of the year. It'll be the best fight of the year for me. It's when he knocked out Michael Bisping and shut Michael Bisping up for a little bit at least, and his fans up a little bit at least. But see, Bisping's back with another good win, which I thought he would do against Alan Belcher. He looked really good in that fight. Should have knocked him out, but he looked really good in that fight. Losses, he lost to Henderson, he's lost to Overeem. The guy's fought everybody. He's fought so many big fighters. Lost to Ortiz, lost to Couture, beat Couture, lost to Liddell. The guy has faced the who's who of the MMA hierarchy for years. I think if he wins this, he puts himself right in there for a title shot. I hope he gets a title shot, but who knows what the UFC will do. He stepped up and helped the UFC at UFC 152, so hopefully they give him another shot at Silva or Chris Weidman, who I think will beat Anderson Silva in a few short months. As I say, Luke Rockhold, former champion, beat Tim Kennedy, Keith Jardine, Jacare. So the guy's got he's from AKA, and they've got a lot of really top fighters at the minute. Cain Velasquez and Daniel Cormier and stuff like that. So they're a really solid team. I just think this is a fight too much for Luke Rockhold in his UFC debut. And Vitor on his TRT, and in Brazil as well. I just don't think he's going to be stopped in this fight, and I've got a funny feeling he might take him out. I think we might see a Belfort flurry, and he will take Luke Rockhold out I can see it being early. So I'm going to go first round TKO for Vitor Belfort, and then I think we're back. That's us back next week for UFC 160, I think from Las Vegas. Velasquez versus Bigfoot 2, and we've got Junior Dos Santos versus Mark Hunt, which looks amazing. And we've got Donald Cerrone in the card as well. So we'll be back for that. I'll get the video pumped out probably Monday afternoon. I'll let you know. Follow me on Twitter, BigBilber7MMA. Let me know if you like the video, if you don't like the video. But come and share your opinions with me and your picks, and I'll be back next week for UFC 160. So enjoy your weekend and enjoy the fights. See you later, guys.